So, Muireann, it's good to talk to you. Um, you and I come from the same province, the province of Munster, but we come from different counties. And I suppose in the province of Munster, we're as far away from each other where we grew up than we could possibly be in any other two locations in the province of Munster. So, my own experience, my own kind of memory of Christmas at home was Christmas Eve was a big day. We went down shopping down to the set, not shopping, more or less down to the centre of Waterford, where I come from, and we'd meet relatives down there, and everyone would be saying Happy Christmas, many happy returns, and then my parents really weren't. They didn't drink at all, but we would always on Christmas Eve go to the local hotel, and we meet a lot of family members there, and we'd have a great kind of family gathering, and then we'd come home
Yeah.
and all that day, the bacon would have been slowly cooking, and we would have sort of fresh bacon sandwiches, which were wonderful. I still remember them with great fondness because the bacon would have cooked for so long that it would be in great condition and perfect for hot sandwiches, which were great. And then we would go to midnight mass, and that was really when the musical dimension came in, because our local church had a very good choir. My sister was a member of the choir, in fact, and still is to this day. And they would put on midnight mass was a wonderful occasion, and it was wonderful because unlike, the rest of the time, there was one mass maybe a week which had some choir, but it would be a smaller choir, a few singers, but for Christmas Eve they would be the whole full choir, and it would really and the organ playing, and that was a marvelous occasion, and all the sort of Christmas hymns and so on being played. That's my musical memory from Christmases growing up in Waterford all those years ago. And also, carol singers, maybe in the week or two before Christmas, you'd have carol singers going around visiting, collecting for some local charity normally. And that was a great way of sort of, brightening up the dark days of December. And then, of course, putting up the Christmas tree. That was always put up on the 8th of December. I remember my mother would take out the decorations on that day, because that was supposed to be the start of Christmas, because that was when it was a kind of a holiday, a traditional holiday in Ireland, and people started their Christmas celebrations and Christmas preparations in earnest on the 8th of December. But what was it like in your part of the country, in the Irish-speaking parts of West Kerry?
Well, we had many traditions similar to yours, but I suppose you come from the city and I come from the countryside, so a couple of differences. The first thing would be that the 8th of December for us is when all the cultures, all the people from the country hit the towns and do their shopping. So I think all the city folk used to run away from us. That was the traditional shopping day. And in the lead up to Christmas then, of course, plenty of carol singing, plenty of great sessions. I play the flute and my father plays the fiddle, and we would take the time to meet other musicians, whether it be in a pub or in a home, and share some special Christmas tunes always. And then, of course, we would have candles in the windows. More recently, people tend to use electric candles, but I still like to use the real ones, even though I know they're a little bit dangerous. But they look so beautiful. And the idea is the candle in the window is to welcome. There's always a place at the table and a place in your home for anyone passing, anyone that might be lonely. And I suppose it's really symbolic of the Holy Family and that they were turned away from so many places. So that I think when you see the twinkling candles across the countryside, it's a really beautiful sight. On Christmas Day, then, we usually go to midnight mass on Christmas Eve, and then on Christmas Day, we go for a swim, and we gather on various beaches. And my father plays the bagpipes, and he pipes us in, and we run into the ocean and scream and yell, and then we come out and get a hot whiskey or a hot port, and share just a little Christmas cheer with our neighbours for a while before we head home for the dinner to bait all dinners that you eat probably in the middle of the day, and goes on, turkey and ham and every type of potato, boiled, roast, mashed. and then generally, like most houses, I think, then the passing out on the couch. But we have two little girls as well, so we're really excited for Christmas this year because, of course, Santi is coming to our house, and Spidogan and Nullag the Christmas robin has been hopping around outside the window, looking in on them, keeping an eye on them, making sure that they're very good, which of course they are. So, and then the day after Christmas Day, as I'm sure you know, Ambassador, we have a tradition called Wren's Day, St. Stephen's Day, where we go out on the Wren, dressed up in all manners of crazy costumes, and go around from house to house. And that's a kind of a way to release a bit of wildness after your good behavior on Christmas Day. And we play tunes and collect money for charities, like you mentioned earlier as well. So it's a really lovely time. And I think even with the restrictions, we'll make the very best of it this year.
Yes, in my family, Christmas Day was a special day because all of my mother was one of 8, and remarkably, all of them lived in the city of Waterford. None of them ever emigrated, even though in those days emigration was kind of endemic from Ireland. But somehow they all managed to stay. But we saw them like the odd time. But on Christmas Day, they would all come in. All of her brothers and sisters would come in to visit my mother, and so we'd have a succession from because we had been to midnight mass, so there was no mass. You didn't go to mass generally. Some people did, but we didn't go to mass on Christmas Day. We regarded the midnight mass because it was at midnight in those days. Now it's usually at 9 o'clock in the evening or even earlier on Christmas Eve. But in those days it was genuinely at midnight. So you weren't obliged to go to mass on Christmas Day itself. But so my aunts would come in, and we never had any alcohol in the house during the year. But for Christmas, my parents would buy a couple of bottles of whiskey and a couple of bottles of port or sherry or whatever, and a few beers. So they would so uniquely in the course of the year, they would be sort of whenever people came at Christmas, they would get a little drop of whiskey, and sometimes some of the uncles would maybe indulge a little bit too much and would be a bit late getting home to their families. But again, like you, we had our Christmas lunch about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it was a great family gathering. And then in the evening, some of my aunts with their families would come down to our home and would join us for Christmas evening, and we'd have the leftovers from the lunch we'd serve, and then we'd have a sing song. So everyone around the room would have to sing a song, not necessarily a Christmas song, although sometimes it was like that. And my grandmother was a fine singer, and she would sing. My father was a decent singer. All of us could manage some kind of a tune, and we didn't have any musicians in the family. It was all a cappella, I suppose you call it now, but we just call it my mother would say, "Oh, we will sing a few camallias." This was the way we referred to kind of songs, because maybe other times of the year they might have been more interested in music hall or pop music or whatever music. Yeah. But on Christmas it always was a more traditional kind of. And then we would play cards. We would play, everyone in the house would play cards, and we would play for pennies. You might make a shilling or whatever out of your playing cards if you had a good night around the card table. But it was fun. And then late at night, we would watch whatever big film. In those days, of course, we only had one television station in Ireland, so we'd watch whatever big film would be on the television that night. It would be a kind of a recent blockbuster film normally that had been out maybe a year or two before, and would be shown on Irish television that evening. That was a great way to finish off the evening, and then of course, yes, the following day. Well, I mean, because nobody went out on Christmas Day, all the pubs were closed. What we call St. Stephen's Day, which is 26th of December, was the biggest going out night of the year, and everyone went out on Christmas on Stephen's Day. Even people who would normally not be much for going out, would definitely, that day would be a big day for them to go out. It was always Stephen's Day, 26th of December, and also Easter Monday. They were the two big kind of days when really everyone that could go out went out and enjoyed an evening of merriment, and there would be music in all the pubs and restaurants and so on, and a great atmosphere. So, and of course, yes, the Wren, it was also a tradition in Waterford, even though Waterford's a city and a different kind of culture from yours maybe, and not the Gaelic influence that you had in the Gaeltacht of West Kerry, but nonetheless, Stephen's Day was a great day as well, and we'd always visit family. And for between Christmas and New Year, really every day we would visit some family member and have a meal with them. So it was a way of bringing the family together in the festive season.
Absolutely. It's something that goes on here until the 6th of January, which is Nollaig na
Yes.
mBan, or Little Women's Christmas. And
Yeah, we must tell
so
everyone about Nottingham on because we need to make it better known.
okay, well, I love the idea of it actually. So
Yeah,
the
I do
from
too, and my wife loves it even more.
yes, because
Tell
the
us about.
rule is that on the 6th of January on Nollaig na mBan, the women are not allowed to do any work whatsoever, because for the 2 weeks prior to that, especially long ago, maybe things are a bit more equal now, but they would have been cooking and cleaning and minding a million children and looking after elderly relatives and making sure everyone had the Christmas that they wanted them to have. And so on the 6th of January, that was the day that the women were to put their feet up and the men were to wait on them. And it's still celebrated hugely here all over the country, not just in Gaeltacht areas. And it's marked by, generally, you can see clatters of women, big gangs of them going out for fancy meals in restaurants, or there might be special concerts featuring women artists, or poetry readings or whatever. Because as you explained as well, the sing song is so important. And actually, I think everyone in Ireland, we all have a party piece. It's not about how good you are or whether you're professional or not. It's just very much a part of our tradition and the way we mark special occasions, be that Christmas, birthdays, funerals, weddings. There has to be a sing song, and even if you can't sing a song, maybe a recitation, or a tune or a dance. So yeah, Nollaig na mBan is a lovely way to finish off Christmas Day, and then, or Christmas time, and then after the 6th, the decorations have to come down on the 7th. That's the rule. And by then we're
That
kind
is,
of, yeah, it's time for them to come down.
just to explain that Muireann is from the native Irish speaking part of Ireland, and I'm from a city where the Irish language is not spoken as a native language, but I speak it fairly fluently, as many people do who are not brought up speaking, but we learn it at school and so on. But our traditions are very similar in that sense, although maybe in the rural areas there's a little more traditional stuff, and it's mainly, I think, because in rural areas people tended to come home for Christmas, right? Coming home for Christmas was a big thing, and because of rural areas, a lot of people had to leave to find work in the Irish cities, or maybe even in Britain, or in many cases in the United States. Coming home for Christmas was a big thing indeed, and that's one of the things that all of us will miss, I think, this year. This will be my first time I'm spending Christmas in Washington this year, and it'll be the first time I've ever spent Christmas away from family, which is an extraordinary thing, but that's the extraordinary times we live in.
Can I ask a quick
That's
question?
that's going to be really hard, and I'm sorry to hear that, but I feel pretty certain that things will be different next Christmas. And my God, we're all going to appreciate each other's company so much more when we can gather in person again.
You know,
But we'll make the best of it, and there'll be plenty of Zooms here on Christmas Day as well, and Skypes, because there are many people we can't see, and even people who don't live too far away, but they aren't in our bubble. With elderly parents, we have to be careful. So
you-
yeah, we'll make it as good as we can.